The Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Luis Moreno Ocampo, has issued a summons request for 6 prominent Kenyans on charges of crimes against humanity related to post-election violence in 2007. Among them, former Police Commissioner Major General Mohammed Hussein Ali and Francis Muthaura, one of the President Kibaki's closest aides. 1,500 people were killed after the disputed 2007 presidential election. Now, the ICC's naming of the Kenyans is being hailed by activists as a sign of progress in the fight against the culture of impunity in Africa. Joining us from our New York studio is to discuss the situation is Richard Dicker, Director of Human Rights Watch's International Justice Program. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Very glad to be with you.
Now, you personally, in fact, led the campaign to establish the International Criminal Court. When you hear such an announcement as that one that was made by Mr. Ocampo, how do you feel?
Well, I think I feel the way so many Kenyan human rights and civil society activists feel, and that is finally, after repeated cycles of violence associated with prior elections in Kenya, there is an effort to hold to account those who may be responsible for murder, rape, forced displacement of populations, and it is a crucial step in breaking the grip of impunity that has meant so much suffering and misery for victims in Kenya.
Now, going beyond the borders of Kenya, would you say this particular case could mark the beginning of the end of impunity across the continent?
Right. Well, I think there are many important signs of impunity winding down, though there's a long way to go. I think the cases that the ICC has brought in Darfur for horrific slaughter there in the years 2003, 2005 in particular, for crimes committed by the Lord's Resistance Army in northern Uganda, for crimes committed by armed militias in eastern Congo. I think all of those together suggest that the era of unlimited impunity for the most serious crimes under international law is beginning to end. I want to add to that the effort to prosecute former Chadian president Hissène Habré in a Senegalese court is another contribution and step in that direction. The efforts in Uganda to establish a special division of the High Court in Kampala to try similar kinds of crimes is another potential significant step. So taken together, I think the International Criminal Court, other efforts by governments in Africa reflect a real departure from impunity.
Now, Richard, you mentioned all those areas and some of the people who are being charged or who might be charged, but there are those who say, well, one of the things we haven't seen so far is conviction. We haven't seen any major conviction up to this point. The court seems to take forever to prosecute a particular case. Now, is the court as effective as it claims to be?
Well, I would say, regardless of the court's claims, no, it's not as effective, nor is it as efficient as it should be. This is a relatively new institution created from scratch, so to speak, back in 2002. It currently has 3 trials underway. The first of those trials has proceeded with real difficulties and has taken longer than victims certainly and observers and human rights activists like myself would have liked. At the same time, because it is a new institution, one would expect that it will do some lessons learned and improve its efficiency and performance as it goes forward. In terms of effectiveness, I think it's a little early to pass judgment on the court's effectiveness. I think it's making a significant effort. It will take time for this court to become a powerful deterrent force on behalf of victims against the commission of future crimes.
And you know, for it to become such a deterrent force, there has to be credibility. Now, there are those in Africa who say, hey, look, this court just seems to be targeting Africans, and there are people in other regions of the world who are committing similar crimes. They don't seem to be, you know, taken to this court. Is it a court for Africans?
Well, I think that's a fair question, and one that requires a thoughtful examination in order to be able to answer it. Africa and African governments were a crucial force in creating this court back in the late 90s. And I know that from my visits in Africa in that period. If it weren't for African states working together with Latin American states and European states, there wouldn't be an international criminal court. The result of that is that more than 30 African governments, to their credit, have ratified this treaty, which means that crimes that occur on their territories where their national courts do not take action or are unwilling to take action could be handled by the ICC. I think that's the principal reason there are so many cases emerging from Africa, unlike, for example, Sri Lanka, where there certainly is a basis for serious investigations and criminal charges. That remained outside of this court's treaty, and the prosecutor, unfortunately, has no authority, unlike in 30 African states, to intervene judicially. The same is true of Burma. There are many countries in the world where crimes have been committed, but because of the repressive nature of their governments, the court is barred from asserting its authority there. So I'm sympathetic with the concern, but I think one has to look a little bit beneath the rhetoric to get at the facts.
So some, you know, would want to know, for instance, what more, in the case, in your personal assessment, needs to be done in order to make people feel that a lot is, you know, enough is being done, particularly in Africa, where we've seen all these crimes being committed from north to south, west to east? Well,
certainly there are a number of investigations in Africa. I think what needs to be done is, one, for more states like the 30 plus in Africa that have ratified this treaty, more states need to ratify the treaty that will give the court the authority to open investigations there, if and only if the national courts have failed to do their job in prosecuting these crimes. I think it's important for the United Nations Security Council to look seriously and consider referring the situation in Sri Lanka, in Burma, and other countries to the ICC for investigation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. That's Richard Dicker, Director of Human Rights Watch's International Justice Program. Thank you very much.
Very glad to be with you.
Thank you.